Now, look, it's our national distraction, our national pastime, our national passion. But it would appear that perhaps there is an opportunity for Ghana to use football as a tool to solve its economic problems. Football has been a significant force in shaping the economics of many countries around the world, and the English Premier League is a perfect example of this. The league has not only created many young millionaires, but has also spurred the growth of many businesses that have contributed to the British economy. Ghana has a rich footballing history, and with the right approach, the country could possibly use football to transform its economy. Today, we're going to explore how Ghana can leverage the beautiful game to create jobs, stimulate economic growth, and promote social development. We have all the experts you could possibly wish for to help us break this all down, okay? Now, I'll introduce our guest in a moment, but first, let's bring in our very own Isaac Kofi Adjei. He's our data analyst. He's got all the numbers from the Joy News Research Desk, and I'm already curious. There are people who have just tuned in because they heard football. They perhaps don't pay as much attention to the economy. So maybe you can draw that link for us. What is the state of our economy at the moment, for which reason we are looking for options to boost it, including football?
Right, so if you talk about Ghana's economic problem, the first thing that comes to mind is our deficit, where we are a country that we spend so much but generate less. And even when we are generating, we are actually spending in areas that are not growth-oriented. So for instance, if you compare Ghana's GDP to our debt stock at the moment, you can't have a country like Ghana with a GDP of 610 billion Ghana cedis and a debt stock of 576 billion. If you do the difference, it's just around 20 billion or 30 billion difference. So you ask yourself, I am able to generate 610, but my debt stock is around 576 billion cedis. Now, the next thing you also have to talk about is, as a country, if you look at 2023, for instance, we are hoping to generate close to 143 billion Ghana cedis. Compare this to our debt stock, and you see that there's this huge variance between how much we are willing to, going to generate in 2023 and then our debt stock. But one, surprising thing is I want us to show that, pie chart on the screen for our viewers to really understand the problem we find ourselves in. Right. So just look at this chart. This is Ghana's, pie for 2023 in terms of revenue. Now, with this pie that we're talking about, if we are generating 143 billion Ghana cedis, Kojo, and we are paying workers 45 billion, compensation of workers 45 billion, then we pay interest on our debts, loans that we've taken, not even the principal or amortization. It's around 53 billion. Now, talk about arrears clearance. It's around 14 billion Ghana cedis. Amortization itself this year is projected to hit 22 billion Ghana cedis. So just look at the pie. It simply means that if you take away compensation of employees, interest payments, arrears clearance, amortization, we are just left with about 10 billion cedis to spend on all other things. Now, trust me, free SHS alone is taking about 2 billion or 2.5 billion from the coffers. How much is left to do roads? Like the Nungwa roads you just played, how much is there to do such roads? So we always find ourselves in the, the Eurobond market, wherever to borrow. So day in and day out, every year, Ghana needs about $4 billion to shore up its budget. Without that, we find ourselves in a very, very precarious situation where we have nowhere to go. For instance, this year, we are thrown out of the Eurobond market. The $3 billion we usually get to shore up the budget, we no longer have it. It was in the domestic market that we're getting the CD denominated bonds to actually help pay, salaries and all that. Now we've done restructuring. Nobody's willing to be in that market. Even in the treasury bill, security, where we wanted to still attract people, so we decided to raise the T-bill rate to about 31%. People got attracted. They were buying T-bills. Now, do you know where the rate's around 18 or 19%? More or less like an indirect haircut for those who decided to go in there. So Ghana's situation has always been structural, fiscal, and monetary, where at every point in time, we don't print dollars. That's the first thing we have to look at. We don't print dollars.
But we owe dollars.
We owe dollars. We owe in dollars, actually. So we don't print dollars. And day in and day out, we need dollars to do, crude oil, refined crude imports. So if you look at this year, for instance, we need about $5 billion to make sure that the country has refined crude for all operation at all levels. We need some monies to procure, pharmaceuticals. And what we are generating, although may be enough, but we end up using it to pay, interest payments on loans. But how can you be a country where you actually get about 5 billion from gold, some 4 billion from, let's say, oil and other places, and cocoa, and then you are paying interest payments on your debt alone as about $1.5 billion? You ask yourself, then you are in a very, bad situation where right after paying all these loans, you don't have any other thing left. But it looks as if we've been, focusing on this commodity market situation where we focus on cocoa, we focus on, gold and oil, but there are other places where we probably can look at as a country to actually, get the foreign liquidity or the foreign exchange that we want. Tourism is one of them, and sports is one of the areas that we need to look at. Entertainment and music. The streaming industry is booming. Is Ghana taking advantage of it? Ghana, we love sports. We are able to export so many players to, different leagues. Are we getting the best out of these players? Are we really getting the foreign exchange that we need as a country? Maybe when we progress, I'll show you a very beautiful chart where Nigeria, in terms of remittances, how much they are getting as a country versus how much we are also getting as a country. So that's the link there. We've been dependent on commodity. It's not helping. This is a time where we need to look at areas like tourism, sports, and entertainment.
All right. Well, let's start looking at it. First of all, what do we know about how much money is in football? I think this is the perfect time to introduce other guests, and it's very exciting. We've got here from the Joy Sports team, Daniel Koranting is here with us in the studio. Good to see you, Daniel.
Good to see you, Gojo.
All right, and we're joined via Zoom by the BBC's George Adu Jr. Yes, we still lay claim to him, but we have to add BBC now when we call his name. George, it's good to have you. Been a while. How are you doing?
I'm good, Kojo. It's good to join you guys here, and always a son of multimedia. Nothing changes, so you can keep the tag as well.
You'd better be. We also have Jerome Ochre joining us. Jerome is a football writer. Until recently, he was the editor of the Kotoko Express. Jerome, great to see you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, good afternoon to everyone, and hi, George.
Hey, Jerome. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Okay, listen. Let's start getting to the bottom of it. Should we start with you, Kofi? Do you have any numbers by way of the performance of football in our economy?
Probably let's look at expectation of players, how we export players from Ghana to other places.
Yeah.
But before we even look at Africa, I want us to look on the globe. Look at the top 5 countries that really export players from their place of origin to other places. Brazil is number 1. If you can show that chart. Yeah, they export about 1,219, and this is from the CIES Football Observatory.
Okay.
Brazil is number 1, followed by France, 978. Then we have Argentina, 815. England, 525. You ask yourself, why are English exporting players? They usually go to Scotland. So, and there's also Germany, about 441. If you look at Africa, the top 5 countries, we are in there. That tells us that we have, that sort of opportunity to leverage on. Right. Nigeria is around 334, people that they actually export every year. Now, this is as of May 2022. Ghana, we exported 293 players to, different leagues and confederations. Ivory Coast followed with the 3rd position, 208. There's Senegal, 192, and Cameroon around 131. Now, you cannot really draw that direct link between football and remittance because of the graph I'm coming to show. But I feel there is some sort of indirect correlation between your remittance as a country and the number of footballers you have in foreign lands.
Right.
Well, if you look at Nigeria, for instance, they are leading in Africa. If you hold other things constant, Nigeria is able to generate remittances alone about $20 billion every year. Yes, $20 billion every year. Compare Nigeria to Ghana. Ghana is generating about $4.2 billion remittance. Ivory Coast, $440 million. Senegal is about $2.6 billion, and Cameroon is about $430 million. So, remittance. So it means that if you're able to get these players to these foreign lands, England, the number one, destination for Ghanaian players is not in England or it's not even Europe. It's USA.
Of
And
course.
Yes, and that's where we need the dollars.
That's the emerging football market.
Yes, and that's where we need the dollars. So if you're able to capitalize on this, I feel that it will go a long way to help our economy. The economy that needs dollar every day to breathe. We also need football to help come in place to help.
Fascinating stuff. Thank you for that, Kofi. I want George and Daniel, I'm sure you will allow me to extend hospitality to Jerome by going to him first. Jerome, we're mad about the sport in this country. But making money from it has not really been the big characteristic of our passion. If indeed we are able to send or export more players, talk to me about how, as an economy, that would have a positive impact.
I think we first have to find out from the FA whether the remittances we are speaking of, your data analyst is pointing to, rubs on them in any way. If it doesn't rub on them anyway, if it does not even touch anything about our tax issues or government's finance issues, then I'm telling you that the monies we are talking about are going into private pockets, going directly into private pockets. And I do not see how Ghana as a state or as a country can benefit if we don't have any means of tracking these monies and directing whatever must come to the state coffers or even the Football Association's coffers the way they should. I think the problem here for us is that a lot of these things are not documented in any way. I am very happy to see these statistics your data researcher is putting out, but I am very doubtful if you go to the Football Association, they can give you the kind of figures you guys are churning out, the amounts involved, and whether or not they've been able to track what they are deserving of. Because I know that if players are transferred from Ghana to any part of the world, certain amount of money or some quota of the transfer amount involved must come to the Football Association. There have been instances where some of the people involved have not paid those amounts they must pay to the Football Association. And that in itself is a problem. So these things may look good on paper. I mean, they may look very nice talking about them in the media, but you go on the ground and you'll find out that we don't have any means of tracking these transfers and the monies that come out of them. And I think that is an area we must look at.
Absolutely important point there. George, let me ask you, what is our reporting telling us about the earning power of these players once they go into these foreign markets, like the US, which is an emerging market? When they go there, what kind of figures are we talking about by way of weekly or monthly earnings? For which reason we're hopeful that we ought to be sending more?
Yeah, I think before I answer that question, Jerome was just touching on it, and I'm very happy with all the analysis of the statistics, but I would also want us to keep in mind that it's not only the transfer of players, that will bring Ghana's economy some cash. It's also got to do with how properly set up we are to ensure we can get more players going in and coming out. And so we'd also have to pay attention to how much money, for instance, the Black Stars, who have been the flagship team, has made from tournaments, and how much of that money has been invested to ensure that we can raise more players to begin to chase the remittance, which is very important. For all the countries that you, especially with the global picture, for all the countries that you saw, they have all undergone a 10-year program, a 14-year program, a 9-year program, a 6-year program of huge investments and delicate planning to ensure that they are now at the reaping end. So I was just reading that, for instance, here in the United Kingdom, sports alone contributed £39 billion to the economy here. And that is not just about the number of English players that have moved to Scotland. It's about a franchise called the Premier League that has attracted so many eyes here in the sport. You can have tourism in the sport. You can have people who are willing to invest. So I just want us to give us this open idea around how the football itself can bring us a lot more money than even the players, being transferred. Because the first thing is that your talent production line must be right intact. We have huge questions with it. And we don't seem to have a serious plan of investment. And it's not only about the Ghana Football Association. It's really about a huge effort from the government. We have seen what is happening in Morocco. And I just want to say this because I remember before we went to the World Cup, we went about how much money we were going to earn even if we were knocked out in the first round of the World Cup. We were knocked out of the group stages. The Ghana Football Association often have said that when they come back, the government take the money and it goes back into the coffers. But my issue is when we are going for a World Cup, for instance, we don't hear what the Ghana Football Association's plan is. So that when government takes the money, we can say, this plan was what the FA wanted to do it, and that goes out. So I'll directly come to your answer, Kojo. How much the players are earning is a little part of it, because our players are not earning a lot. If you look around, you'd say that the players who are in the top leagues, i.e. the English Premier League, top 5. Maybe you are playing in League R. How many of them do we have? Today we have one of our brightest stars, Joseph Pencil, is playing in Belgium. Yeah, we've got Salis playing in France. We don't have the big hitters. Our big hitters at the moment, Thomas Partey, yes, he's making the money, at Arsenal. But even with that, we don't seem to have the structures to ensure that we're bringing that money in. So I'm so worried about the way we are set up in itself to try to take advantage of it. For the monies that we'll get because these players have gone, again, it will come down to our accounting and how truthful we are being to the cash that is coming in. And unfortunately, I don't think so. I think, for instance, the government is so interested in Black Stars because of how much they can get and the fact that they can squeeze the hands of the FA and push the money into the coffers, or it's huge money coming in that they can use for something else. When it comes to that delicate plan of how we want to make it, no. I don't think we're there, and it's really, really tattered at the moment.
Daniel, I want to bring you in at this point because, look, there are so many facets to this. It's not just about how much money can be remitted by players who are posted abroad, but it's about the whole ecosystem, okay? People have to go and watch matches. There has to be advertising. There has to be streaming. There have to be so many sources of it, including tourism, all of these things feeding in and out of each other in order for the economy to benefit. Talk to me. I mean, we're not a rich country. Exactly how much does the average Ghanaian football lover spend on his love? And are there ideas of how we can get people to spend more in order to generate that growth in our economy?
Fact is that the interest is there, and football is loved by Ghanaians. It's a fact. You can see it when the Black Stars are playing, when the whole country comes to a standstill just to watch the Black Stars, the amount of money that is pumped into the Black Stars. So the interest is there. And the knowledge of the power of football in transforming the economy is also there. Because if you see the amount of government attention on the Black Stars, be it the World Cup, be it AFCONs, they know that there's an opportunity to make money. But it is how do we broaden this thing and take it away from the Black Stars and make it a football thing? And that's where the problem is. If you look at the Premier League, their highest, what generates them the most amount of cash that they do is their TV rights deal before match tickets come into play. So football is moving past just buying tickets and going to the stadium. Football is it's linked to entertainment, so people can sit at home and use it as an opportunity to satisfy their leisure time. And that's where we need to start looking. By looking at that also, you also need to understand that we are in a world that is a digital world now. You are not just competing with various African leagues, or you're also competing with the global leagues. So I can sit in my house on a Saturday at 3 p.m. and have the opportunity or luxury to choose whether I watch a Chelsea versus Liverpool game. At the same time, Hearts and Kotoko are playing. So that is where we've reached. And if you look at the things that the top African countries in terms of football are doing, they've been able to brand their leagues separately and make it a thriving enterprise where football fans, in as much as they are attracted to the foreign leagues, also have a very close relationship with their local clubs and want to follow them and want to watch. So if you go to South Africa, there's a very keen following. In fact, if you look at the numbers in South Africa, the amount of TV viewership that the Soweto Derby carries, that is Kaizer Chiefs versus Orlando Pirates, is actually more than some of the biggest Premier League ties. So fact is, if Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates are playing at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, and Man United and Chelsea are also playing at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, you have more people watching the Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates game. And it is something that we can manifest in our game. But
can we?
Yes, we can. I believe we can, because it's basically about quality. And we have to go up. You see, when you are going to market anything, the thing must be of a certain standard. So the quality must be there. We need to go back, look at our grassroots level in football, improve. Even when it comes to transferring players out, there's a reason why we don't get as much money from transferring players. Our players don't attract as much salary levels as other places, because the quality that we are sending out is not of a certain standard. It's not of that standard. So what they are going to do is like we are taking a raw material and they still have work to do. So of course you are not going to pay them the same amount of money as a country that has invested into grassroots. So if we're able to do that, it's a whole broad conversation. We're able to properly fix the football at the grassroots level. Make sure that you get players who are of a certain quality. Start attracting transfer fees that befit the quality of the players. It all comes back because it's a direct link. A foreign team is buying a Ghanaian player, a player who is born and produced by the Ghanaian system, and the money is coming back to the Ghanaian club, which will continue to circulate. So that is one aspect of the argument. Another one is also creating the product. That is the Ghana Premier League, the Division 1, the Women's League. Make it as attractive as possible to the point that people will be torn between the Ghana Premier League product and then the other foreign leagues, because whether you like it or not, as I said, it's a competition. Now think about 2 seasons ago, when that was straight the first season after the COVID, the normalization whole saga, and the Ghana Premier League was back. So that was the first complete season we had in 3 years. There was interest. If you look at the numbers in terms of stadium attendance, that Hearts and Kotoko game churned out, you could clearly see that people, the hunger was there. These were the 2 biggest teams in the country for the first time in, I think, 11 years, who were directly battling for the league title. So we have football lovers in the country. Of course, they command majority of the football fans in the country. Hearts Kotoko are gunning for the title. There's a direct link there. And then when that game was sort of a decider, it was like 2 or 3 games at the end of the season, was happening, we saw tons of people thrown to the stadium. It was very similar to what we saw in the Ghana versus Nigeria game. So the fact is, even club football, if we properly brand it and we properly market it, it can start generating the similar numbers that the Black Stars are doing. It's just about where our priorities lie.
2 key words I've picked up from everything you've said: brand and market. It appears that those are the verbs that will move this from a conversation into reality. Brand and market. We'll come back and talk more about these with all of you. But first, we hit the streets because football is a game of the masses. So we asked Ghanaians to tell us whether they thought football could be what kickstarts our economy. Let's hear some of their responses.
We have some things, the tournament we call Munchenji and Coast and this thing. That is where we can get players who can play the first division, this thing, where we can produce players. So if they go back and check, they are all mistakes when they are done already. I thought Ghana football would be great.
England, born no kwanimu, and they say England abano at the Sikasha one Premier League nimu. Wow, or the Sikasha Premier League nimu into a Timi Kasemu. Say player, Tenaha, it be a years, say, Menko, and as a player, where yes, say, Naya Hano GF any player, only a Wadimbi player Biazo, only a Wadu team Bias because player with snap or hearts 5 years, Bokotoko 5 years, but Brasta 5 years outside work with Brutary. But England, what me and I what the Wadimbi Asher English football, Nim say. So, won't buy English football now, say that the quality is the won't buy one national team, no, Nagana ha and Tessa. Obia best who say me ba no couple professional on the betwe fie or the $1,000 bar yes ka mu o Ghana obebubu
sign e ba ne echi be at say na that first ya ka say kotoko ne highs e gina park so na fe da ya ma no se e pese hu ne sa bia mu dia first of all mo me mfa ne kore enye adwuma second my mu Africa ye pendro dro sem. Wahoo, it is a person football, a year good. No football to me, Bonadin, a Kunanimua. Mumma, man, who credit, who won my only my dinner, but answer a sign, brab. Oh, we said the over to me to be advanced be about 5,000. Until I saw no dear funnel. No, I'm be on him, when this can be. But what do we say, the original feed in the soir? Oh, body, by essence, sky, I day, only beat you know. I day.
In Ghana here, we don't engage ourselves much more in our local language, in our local matches. But when we look at how the foreigners organize their football and their games, you see, it is more interested than ours because we don't organize our games were here as well. Yeah.
Fascinating ideas there. All right, listen, let's talk some more. Let's try and figure out how to make this thing a reality. Because, well, from the theory, it can be done. Jerome, I want to come back to you. And I mean, bear in mind what you've heard people say as well. Let's now look at the two words, marketing and branding. First of all, does Ghana have that capacity to market and brand football the way South Africa does it, the way England does it, to the point, to that fever pitch where people actually make a date to sit down in front of their televisions and watch the beautiful game?
You know, I'm just fascinated by what people on the street are saying. I mean, I get the impression that those of us who call ourselves pundits of the game don't even know anything because everything they said there make a lot of sense. See, George started this conversation very well. I didn't want to start it from that point, but George made a fantastic point. And I think the answer to your question can be placed in George's argument that, look, we have to start at the policy level. George was talking about Morocco. He was talking about what other countries have done over the span of 5, 6, 7, 10 years, and today are reaping the benefits of it. So whether it's branding, whether it's marketing, we have to come back to the basics. What is the policy guideline for sports development in Ghana? As we speak, there's none. In fact, to be very fair to the government, the current Ministry of Youth and Sports have been working very hard to get the sports policy passed, or is it the sports bill passed? And I have been privileged to see the document. I've seen some of the things that have been put in there. If we are going to pass that policy and commit to what we have put in the policy, you see, we have very fine laws and very fine policies, but it comes down to whether or not we are ready to be doers of the word, be committed to what we've written on paper. So I'm saying that if we can pass the sports policy, from what I have seen, it covers everything from governance to marketing to branding to everything, infrastructure, everything in there. We are going to commit ourselves to working with the policy. then we can look forward to getting something out of it. Because those countries that we are citing as very good examples here did not start doing things from the tops of their heads. They have.
Right. Let's see if we can. Yeah, forgive us. We're going to clean up that connection to Jerome and hear the rest of his submission. Very interesting point he's making there, that perhaps it all starts with what we put on paper, the policy, which should contain plans for everything, including branding and marketing. And while we're working to reconnect with Jerome and George, Daniel, let me ask you, how are we failing? If we already know what needs to be done, at what point as a nation are we failing in even getting started with something as basic as a policy?
I think it's just down to priorities. Because I don't want to think, and by basis of the Black Stars example I gave, I know that the knowledge is there. The knowledge of the ability of football to transform this is there. It's just about priority and whether we want to sit down and invest what we need to invest and have the patience to wait for it to reach the reaping period. And that is where I feel like we don't necessarily have, it's not a continuous policy that we have, something that somebody will start. It's not the sort of thing that one government will start and see the end to it. It's a continuous thing. It needs to be collaborative. And that's why I feel like the disconnect is. If we're able to do that, the power of football is huge, because when you look at the countries that are doing it right, even the countries who started, I can see like 10, 15 years ago, we can see the clear, if you look at the documents that you gave, you look at the numbers that Ghana has as compared to the money they are generating, and look at what Senegal does as compared to the money they are generating. And you can just see, the Senegalese have gone back down. This is what, 4.2 billion that Ghana is generating. As against, it's almost half. Yeah. Almost half. But when you look at the Senegalese numbers, we are by far more than them. Yeah. Because Senegal in recent years have invested money into their grassroots. So the quality of players that are coming out of the Senegalese system are far better, far superior than the Ghanaians. It's not the talent, but it's the quality level, the football brain, the understanding. It's all an educational thing. And when you go out there, you are able to operate on the level that the Europeans are doing. So
because they prioritize.
Because they prioritize. Right? If invested money there to make sure it happens.
I think we've got Jerome back on the line. Jerome, you were making a very important point before we lost you. If you want to wrap that one up for us quickly.
Yeah, so what I was saying was that from everything I have heard people on the street say, from everything we are saying on your platform, it is very clear. We know what to do, yet we are left with what is it that is going to guide us. And that's why I was making the point about the sports policy. If we can get that passed and then commit to doing whatever has been stated in the policy, a lot of our problems will be solved. Because on all levels, I don't think we are up to the standard to even reap anything from what we have. So let's get down to the basics, get the right things done. And you see, it's about commitment. Yeah. Let's commit to doing the right things. Only yesterday, I was making a point about the kind of pitches we play on. And someone at the FA was talking about the Japanese league and how supporters, for instance, clubs in the Japanese league must be community-based. And they make it, from what I was reading, it's more like a policy. If you are not community-based, you probably will not be allowed to compete in the J League. Here, it is like you can play on any surface as long as you qualify for the league. And that is a problem. Why not allow or limit ourselves to a few good pitches and play on those pitches to more or less improve on the quality of the pitches we see?
Yeah.
Rather than allowing just any team to play on any surface and at the end of the day, have the quality or the image of the league impaired by the kind of pitches you play on. So it's about what we know to be right and committing to doing those right things.
And that uniformity would come if we had a policy that spelt it all out. George,
yes.
Clearly there's a lot of work to be done. So help me share the work. How much of this should be the responsibility of government? How much should be the responsibility of footballers? How much should be the responsibility of the fans? Where does everybody come in? And what should we all be doing from today?
Well, for the fans, it's not difficult. When everything is set, they'll come on board. They have to see themselves in the product that you're building. So it is not for a joke, or it is not. It cannot be taken lightly that when Stonebwoy has his annual program in Ashaiman, a lot of people are excited about it, and the Saka Park, they all go there because they can identify with a boy who grew up from Ashaiman and is a star today. Or Saturday went over to Tema, and the Tema guys who come over, or Aigbe Adam goes into the Volta region. There is a reason for that. Fancy Gadam can fill the Tamale Stadium, and there's a reason for the connection. At the moment, fans don't even see themselves in the product that we're building, and it's one of the things that we need to pay attention to. So for the fans, I think that once it's set, they will come. We have had Hearts versus Kotoko games at the Accra Sports Stadium, and they have not gone there. We have had Ghana versus Nigeria games in Kumasi, and they flooded the place, and it's absolutely full. So when you get the things right, they will come in. Now, the Ghana Football Association, for me, must come up with a policy. And the policy, there are lots of them sitting on their desks, from the Normalization Committee to the Commission of Inquiry report from 2014, everything that we need to do to get our football right. And a lot of guys have sat down to put their heads together, and it's just lying on the desks. The Ghana Football Association must carry that to the government. And for the government, they must begin to see sports as a proper tool for development. And when they begin to see sports as a proper tool for development, it will show in the way they react or the kind of decisions they take respect to sports. We have often seen how decisions are made about who should be a sports minister versus who should be a finance minister. The government is more critical about who should be the finance minister, about who should be the health minister, than who should be the sports minister. If government is serious about it, they will take a proper decision, making sure that we don't just have an administrator, but we have somebody who knows how to use the tools of sports to change the economy. I think the government hasn't realized yet how much sports can save us from all these problems. We are just running about it. Government is just running about it and taking the advantage here, there, and getting some money here, there. But they have not really come to that realization that all these problems can be solved by sports. So I'll take it this way. And when it comes to the journalists, you have to keep on speaking the right things, and it's very, very important for us because, Kojo, I am not too happy sometimes. And look, I agree that the Black Stars should be a platform for all the top stars that we have, and so we can get players from all places. But you see, look at the amount of money that will go to clubs because they have been able to give a player to the Black Stars at the World Cup. It are things that should encourage us to understand that if we can sit down and begin today, it will help us. So the Ghana Football Association, speak about your policies, support yourself and begin to lead the way. Speak to government, and the journalists will put government under pressure to get it to do. But if government can realize that sports is a wonderful tool for development, it will be easy for everybody. Then we'll have a president who comes up and says, I need this particular sports minister because we have to get this and this done. We have such a poor approach to getting infrastructure around the country. It was a beautiful idea only years ago under this government when we wanted to put up multi-sport centers around the country. But what did we do in the end? These multi-sport centers are isolated from the very societies that are supposed to use it. We should have been smart in having a multi-sport facility that could have students. I mean, to have school in there, to have it at the heart of the society where people can go and, and not only school, but get to grow in the sport and hone their talents. What we are having at the moment now is members of parliament deciding to take these facilities to their own areas so that when it's time for voting or time for elections, they can say, I did this for the community, so vote for me. And there are places where we know great football is being played, but they don't have these policies. So it comes down, Kojo, for me, to government. Government, I'll give government 60%. They have to believe that sports is the way to go. 35% of it then to the Ghana Football Association with the policies going through, and the 5% we the fans will give it to you. There are no problems at all. If we are interested, we will come. If we see ourselves as part of the product, we will come. But if we don't see ourselves as part of the program, we will look for a place where we can identify. And you see us going to the English Premier League because Thomas Partey is playing for us now. Because Jordan Ayew is playing. Look, Crystal Palace these days has fans in Ghana. Are you serious?
Well, we've come a long way. Even Swansea City has fans in Ghana. What are you talking about? Listen, George Adu Jr., BBC sports journalist, thank you so much for your time with us this afternoon. Always exciting to have you. Thanks so much to Jerome as well and to Daniel. Now, Kofi, I saved you for last because we started with numbers. I want us to end with numbers. Give me a number. What should be football's target of contribution to the GDP per year?
I think it should be around that of tourism, around 1.6 or close to $2 billion every year. And we must make sure we get it. But here lies the case where every opportunity we are getting this year, we are using it to promote debt restructuring. We are not really doing the kind of branding we need. We are only branding our debt and how to make sure we reduce it. And in the next few years, we will rack up more debt. Mind you, it took about $5 billion from China between 2000 and 2019. $5 billion. Most of these loans were supposed to be used for sports, infrastructure. Where are they?
Ghana, Yaya Mobododo. Thank you both very much for your time with us this afternoon.